Hello and welcome back to Bookish Brits. My name is Michelle. I'm trying something a little bit new today with my background. I hope you enjoy it. For today's video, as you can see from the title, I wanted to talk to you about two things. The first is my absolute favorite children's book of all time, and also the literary tattoo I got because of it, and I think really more about what it means to me. So without further ado, my favorite children's book in the whole world is The Boxcar Children by Gertrude Chandler Warner. I've talked about this book before on my book blog, and I think on my own personal booktube channel that I had before, and there's just something about this book that has gotten to me, and it's always really gotten to me. I can't really remember how I came to be in possession of this book. I think most likely it was that my family stopped off at a second-hand bookstore or a charity shop sometime when we were going on a road trip when I was quite small, and either I picked it up myself or somebody picked it out for me, but in any case I've had this book for as long as I can remember. It's a pretty well-loved book. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's like scores on the cover itself. The pages are all warped and discolored, but I love this book so very much. Now it is the story of 4 children who, before the story really begins, become orphans. Their parents had always talked negatively about their this one particular grandfather, and one of the children overhears the fact that the plan is that the children will live with this grandfather. He loves his parents. He thinks that there has to have been a reason that they didn't get on, so he figures the grandfather has to be evil. He has to look after his brothers and sisters, and so what they do is they run away. There's 2 boys and 2 girls. The story and the main gist of it is that these 4 children find an abandoned boxcar in the woods somewhere, and they just make a life for themselves. Henry, the eldest, gets a job. A lot of it is just about how they survive, how they find a stray dog, they go swimming, they pick berries. Eventually, and this is going to be a spoiler if, I don't know, this book's been out forever, but at the end of the story they are reunited with their grandfather, who turns out to be like the greatest, most wonderful person in the world, and they go to live with him. He's really rich, and they're happy almost. They really enjoy spending time with their grandfather, having a family and everything, but they kind of miss this old boxcar. So this is the final book, the final illustration of the book. And what the grandfather has done is he moved the old abandoned boxcar that they had lived in into his back garden, and this is what it looks like. I think that I'd read somewhere, and don't quote me on this, but Gertrude Chandler Warner chose, I think, the 100 easiest words that somebody new to reading could learn, and she created a story around those words. So there's nothing complex in this book. Everything you can kind of sand out. It's the perfect book for children just beginning to read, but it's also just the most wonderful story ever. The second book in this series is called Surprise Island. I have most of the books in this series, but after the second book they really turn more into mysteries, so it becomes the Alden family mysteries after the first 2 books, and it's kind of formulaic. It's, the children go somewhere new, they solve a mystery, that's the end of it pretty much. You kind of they're really comforting reads. You kind of know what's going to happen, but I mean, they're children's books, and they're children's books in a series, and what their intention, I guess, is to hook readers and children into a love of reading, and this series absolutely did that for me. And I actually have more than one copy. I also have this paperback copy of it, and I have the book in Spanish as well, because a couple of years ago I was learning Spanish, and I was given both of these copies to see if I can translate the book, and because it was my husband who got me it, and because he knew I didn't want to ruin my precious copy, that's why he bought me the second version, which I thought was really thoughtful of him, and it was really interesting to read my favorite children's book in another language as well. So my literary tattoo, let's get on with it, is of that final illustration that I showed you, but with like some slight variations as well. So from this, with the sun coming in, you can't really see the clouds. When I picture this image in my head, I don't really see the clouds either. So my tattoo doesn't have the clouds, but it has the rough sort of layout of the picture itself. So the reason I got that, I only have the one tattoo. I know everyone says that people who get one tattoo don't generally, I know that people generally say that you get one tattoo and you kind of want more. I've only ever wanted one tattoo. It's probably the only one that I'll ever have. And to me, it has lots of different like layers of meaning to it. So the first is my dad bought me, apart from the first book in the series, which I don't really know how I got. I know how I got all the other books in the series. My dad bought them for me. Anytime he went near a bookstore, he would just know in his head at what point he'd bought the books up to, and he'd buy me one or two, come home, lay it out on my bed or whatever for me to find. He always really encouraged my love of reading. They're the books that I remember really getting me into reading, and they're so tied into my dad anyway. So that's one thing. My dad, my love of reading, like books itself, but it also, to me, that final image really speaks about family. It speaks to me about finding a place to belong, somebody that accepts you, somebody who listens and kind of works towards your own happiness, and to me, this image says all of that. So what I wanted in my tattoo is something that's with me all the time, is kind of like a reminder of all of those things: my love of reading, this particular book in itself, my dad, and the fact that I have, after a lot of years, found my happily ever after, my family, in a place to belong. So that is the reason that I have this tattoo. At some point I will put up what my tattoo looks like here on the screen. I'd really love to know if you have any tattoos, if they hold any particular meaning. I don't think that tattoos actually need to have a meaning of any sort. That it's just that mine does. I just think they look really pretty. Or if you were to get a literary one, what would you get? I'd really love to know. And also, what was your favorite book as a child? And if anyone has ever read the Boxcar Children, it's more of an American series, so I've never actually met anyone in the UK who has read this book. If you've read the book, please do let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.